Once upon a time, in a city where people walked past each other without looking twice, there lived a woman named Reina. She was not like other women. Her arms were thick with muscle, her shoulders wide like a fighter's, and her back strong enough to carry refrigerators. People whispered when she walked by. Some stared. Some laughed behind her back. But Reina didn't care. She had no home, not even a room to call her own. Her van was her bed, her kitchen, her closet, and the world was her hallway. She worked as a delivery woman for a small local company that paid little and expected a lot. Rain or shine, she showed up. She never called in sick. She never asked for more. At 5:30 every morning, she washed her face in the gas station bathroom, tied her long black hair into a bun, and put on her brown delivery uniform. It didn't fit her well. It was always too tight around her arms and too loose at the waist, but she wore it anyway, because to Reina, work was dignity. Even if you were sleeping in the back of a van with the sound of traffic as your lullaby. That morning, the rain came hard. The sky was gray, and the streets were already filling with puddles. Reina climbed into her van and checked the route on her cracked phone screen. 34 deliveries. All over the city. Heavy boxes. Long stairs. No elevators. She blew warm breath into her hands and muttered, "Let's go, Queen," the name she used to encourage herself. Her first stop was an old apartment building downtown. No elevator. She lifted 2 big boxes of books and carried them up 5 flights without a break. When the man at the door opened it and saw her, his eyes went wide. "You carried both of those? Alone?" Reina wiped sweat from her forehead and nodded. "That's the job." He gave her a small tip. She thanked him, smiled, and walked back down. Her knees ached, but she never let pain slow her down. By noon, she had finished half her list. She ate a banana and a boiled egg in her van and drank from a warm water bottle. Then back to work. No rest, no time. She delivered furniture to a small office. The manager came out and called 2 men to help. "I got it," Reina said. The men laughed. "Sure." One said, "You and which crane?" But Reina bent her knees, lifted the desk, and carried it alone. Everyone stared. "Whoa!" The manager whispered, mouth open, but Reina didn't smile. She just set the desk down gently and said, "Where do you want it?" That was her life. Strength was her voice. Muscles were her armor. But inside, she carried something heavier than all the boxes in the world. Silence. No family. No lover. No friend who knew where she slept. Every day she delivered things to people who had homes, warmth, and comfort. And every night, she returned to her cold van with a sore back and quiet tears. That night it rained harder than before. Her usual parking spot near the warehouse was flooded, so she drove around, looking for a dry place. After 30 minutes, she found a fancy neighborhood with wide streets and quiet corners. Big houses, gates, tall trees, expensive lights. She pulled into a side road near a mansion, turned off her headlights, and parked under a tree. She leaned back in the driver's seat, covered herself with her jacket, and tried to sleep. A dog barked in the distance. The rain tapped on the roof like tiny fingers. And Reina whispered, "Just one more night." The next morning, she woke up to the sound of birds. Her neck hurt, her back was stiff, but the rain had stopped. She stretched her arms, looked in the mirror, and fixed her hair. "Still standing," she said to herself. Today's first delivery was to a place called Kingsley Estate. She didn't know what it was. The system just said, "Gate 3, Silver Pine Street." She drove up the hill, turned left, and saw it. The mansion was huge, glass walls, sharp lines, gardens trimmed like a painting. The gate was tall and black, with gold lions on each side. Reina drove up slowly. The guard walked over with a scowl. "Delivery," he said. "Yes, sir," Reina replied, handing him the tablet. "Box for Mr. Kingsley. Leave it at the gate. I need a signature." "No one signs. Just leave it." Reina stood tall. "Sir, the system says, hand to recipient only. That means someone inside must sign." The guard frowned. "Do you think you can just walk in here with those arms and make rules?" I don't make rules. I follow them. He stared at her muscles, clearly annoyed. Wait here. He walked into the booth and picked up the phone. Inside the mansion, a man in a wheelchair sat by the window, watching it all happen. Julian Kingsley. He was 38, rich beyond imagination, handsome but tired. His legs didn't move like they used to. Car accident had changed his life. He rarely saw people, but today something made him pause. He looked through the glass and saw Raina standing in the rain. Her posture strong, her arms folded, her jaw tight. She's different, he muttered. The intercom buzzed. Sir, delivery. Wants signature. Julian pressed the button. Let her in. The guard blinked. But I said let her in. The gate opened slowly. Raina walked in, holding the heavy box with ease. Julian watched from the shadows behind the curtains. When she reached the door, a housekeeper opened it and signed. Raina nodded, turned, and walked back to the van. Julian leaned back in his chair, eyes still on the glass. For the first time in months, he whispered something out loud. Who is she? And Raina, back in her van, whispered something too. Rich people are weird. She didn't know that this delivery was just the beginning. Tomorrow she'd be back, and nothing would ever be the same. The next morning came too fast. Raina was already up before the sun. She had barely slept. Her van was damp from the rain, and her shoulders ached from staying in one position all night. She opened the door and stepped out, cracking her neck from side to side. Her boots hit the wet pavement, and her breath floated in the cold air. She rubbed her arms and looked around. Same quiet neighborhood, same perfect lawns, same feeling like she didn't belong. Still, she had a job to do. She grabbed her small towel, stepped into the gas station nearby, washed her face quickly, and tied her hair up again. No makeup, no earrings, just Raina. Strong, simple, tired. She checked her route. Something made her pause. Kingsley Estate, Gate 3, Silver Pine Street. Again, she blinked at the screen. Was it a mistake? No way, she muttered. Didn't I just deliver there yesterday? She looked closer. Different package, different sender, same recipient. Julian Kingsley. Her chest tightened. She didn't know why. Maybe it was nothing. Maybe it was a weird coincidence. Or maybe, stop it, she told herself. Just another house, another gate. Still, her hands felt warm as she started the engine. As she approached the estate again, the gold lions on the gate seemed to stare at her. She pulled the van to a stop and walked out, cradling a long rectangular box. Not too heavy, but bulky. She set it gently on the ground and walked toward the guard booth. Same guard, same scowl. She kept her voice even. Delivery for Mr. Kingsley. He glanced up, already annoyed. Again? He asked. That's what the system says. He narrowed his eyes. You sure you're not stalking the man? Raina frowned. Excuse me? First yesterday, now again. What's next? Candlelight dinner. She crossed her arms slowly. Look, I'm just doing my job. If your boss doesn't want deliveries, tell him to stop ordering things. The guard leaned forward. Don't get smart with me, muscle woman. Raina didn't flinch. Don't get rude with me, man behind glass. For a moment there was silence. Then the guard huffed, picked up the phone, and called inside. Inside the glass mansion, Julian sat at his grand piano. He wasn't playing. He just stared at the keys. His wheelchair was parked next to the bench, and the early sunlight painted gold across the marble floors. The intercom buzzed. Sir, the delivery woman is back. Again. Julian tilted his head. Same one. Yes. A small smile touched his lips. Let her in. The guard's voice came through again, clearly unsure. You're sure? Let her in. The gate buzzed open. Raina picked up the box, her arms tight around it. As she stepped through, the guard called after her. Careful not to scratch the glass with your sweat. She didn't answer, but her face burned. She walked through the long driveway. Her boots crushed the gravel softly. Trees lined both sides, trimmed and perfect. She felt like a giant walking into a world that didn't want her. She reached the tall glass door. Before she could knock, it opened. The same housekeeper stood there, eyes wide. "You again," she said. "Package for Mr. Kingsley. Needs a signature." The housekeeper glanced over her shoulder, as if someone was watching. "I'll sign." Raina hesitated. "I was told." A voice echoed from deep inside. "Let her bring it in." Julian's voice. Clear, calm, firm. The housekeeper blinked, then stepped aside. Raina paused for a second, then stepped into the mansion. The air inside was quiet, cold. Everything was glass, marble, and silence. Raina's boots felt too loud for this place. She walked slowly, carrying the box, eyes scanning the wide hallway. On the left, she saw a staircase. On the right, a wide-open living room with white couches and tall ceilings. And straight ahead, a man in a wheelchair. He sat near the window, light pouring over him. His back was straight, his face calm, sharp jaw, soft eyes. He wore a simple black sweater and dark pants. But there was something heavy in the way he held his hands. Raina swallowed and kept walking. Julian didn't move. He just watched. She placed the box gently on the nearby table, then straightened her back. "Delivery for Mr. Kingsley," she said. He nodded. "That would be me." She blinked. "You? I know. I look like someone who never lifts a finger." She didn't answer. He smiled. "Thank you for coming." "Twice." She shrugged. "Wasn't my choice. I asked for you." Raina frowned. "Why?" Julian leaned forward slightly. "Because I wanted to see you again." The words felt strange in the air. Raina blinked. "I'm just a delivery person, sir." "You're not just anything." She stood silent, then looked away. Julian continued. "What's your name?" "Raina." "Raina," he repeated softly. "That means queen." "So they say." He tilted his head. "Do you mind if I ask? Do you always carry heavy packages alone?" "Yes." "No help? No need?" He looked impressed. "You carried a whole desk yesterday." "I remember. And you didn't break a sweat." "I did. You just didn't see it." He smiled. She didn't. Julian nodded. "Would you like some water?" "I'm fine." "Tea?" "No." "A chair?" "No." He paused. "Are you always this guarded?" She looked at him now, straight in the eyes. "Are you always this nosy?" His smile grew wider. "Fair." For a moment, the room was quiet. Just the sound of a clock ticking somewhere far away. Julian broke the silence. "You sleep in your van." Raina froze. "What did you say?" "I noticed. Yesterday. After you left. I saw the way you looked around before driving off. You parked under the tree for too long." She clenched her jaw. "That's not your business." "I didn't mean to offend." "You did." Julian nodded slowly. "I'm sorry." Raina turned toward the door. "I should go." But before she could take a step, he spoke again. "You don't have to live like that." She turned back. "And what would you know about it?" He held her gaze. "More than you think." There was something behind his words. Something deep. Something broken. Raina looked at him again. Really looked. His legs were still. His hands rested gently. But his eyes were tired. Not from sleep, but from life. She stepped forward, slowly. "What happened to you?" "A car crash. A year ago. Drunk driver. I was on the way to the airport." "Lost your legs." "Lost control. They work. Sometimes. But not enough. Not anymore." Raina nodded. "I'm sorry," Julian whispered. "I didn't invite you in to make you feel small." Raina sighed. "Then why did you?" He thought for a second, then said the truth. "Because you reminded me of something I forgot. Strength." Raina didn't speak. Julian continued. "People talk a lot in this house, but no one listens. No one lifts. No one bends. No one pushes. You walked through the rain like it was nothing. You faced my angry guard like he was air. You didn't even flinch." She looked down. "That's just how I survive." "Maybe, but it's rare. And I noticed." Raina lifted her eyes. "Well, thanks." But I'm not looking to be noticed. Julian gave a sad smile. Neither was I. She stood there, unsure of what to say. He pointed toward the box. Do you want to know what's in it? Not really. It's a telescope. Raina raised a brow. I like to look at the stars, he said. It helps me breathe. She softened a little. I haven't looked at stars in years. Why not? No roof. Julian nodded. You can come back and use mine. Anytime. She scoffed. Right? Me in this mansion? With your guards? I don't think so. I'll tell them to stand down. She stepped back again. Look, this was weird enough already. I just deliver things. That's all. He wheeled forward slightly. Maybe next time I'll order something else. So I can see you again. She stared at him. That's not how this works. Maybe it should be. Raina turned again. Goodbye, Mr. Kingsley. Julian, he said softly. She hesitated, then walked out the door without another word. Outside, the guard watched her leave. He opened the gate without saying anything, but Raina noticed his eyes. Less mockery, more curiosity. She didn't like it. She didn't like being seen. She threw the van into gear and drove off without looking back. But her heart was pounding. Back inside, Julian sat at the window. He watched her van disappear. The housekeeper entered quietly. You called for her again? Julian didn't answer. Sir, people will talk. Let them. The housekeeper tilted her head. Is this wise? Julian looked out the glass. She's the only real thing I've seen in a long time. The next morning started slower than usual. Julian Kingsley wasn't rushing to meetings. He wasn't reading reports. He wasn't hosting guests. He was sitting by the window again, staring at the empty driveway. He had been like that for an hour. His hand rested on the side of his wheelchair. His legs, still and lifeless, were covered with a thick blanket. He wore a dark gray sweater and black joggers. But he wasn't cold. He was just still. His eyes didn't blink much. His thoughts were stuck in yesterday. The delivery woman, Raina. Her name repeated in his mind like a song he couldn't turn off. He had met all kinds of women in his life. Models, CEOs, actresses, women who smiled too fast, talked too much, or cared too little. But Raina was different. She didn't ask who he was. She didn't stare at his legs. She didn't even smile. And yet, Julian couldn't stop thinking about her. He turned his head and looked at the telescope in the box, still unopened. He had ordered it as a gift to himself. But now it felt like something more, like a symbol, like maybe he needed to see the stars again. But something else bothered him. She looked tired yesterday. Her eyes weren't just heavy. They were hiding something. A life of carrying too much. He tapped the button on the armrest of his chair. The screen on the wall came alive. Call Benedict, he said. In seconds, the screen showed an older man in a neat suit. His personal assistant. Good morning, sir. Morning, Julian replied. I need a favor. Yes. Can you call the delivery company I used yesterday? Of course. Request the same delivery person again. There was a pause. You want to send another package, sir? No. Just tell them I forgot to sign something. Make something up. Benedict didn't ask questions. He never did. I'll handle it. Julian leaned back in his chair. He didn't know what he was doing. But he knew what he wasn't doing anymore. Hiding. Raina was sitting in the van, eating a hard piece of bread and sipping lukewarm water. She had just finished lifting a mini fridge to the third floor of a cheap hotel when her work phone buzzed. New route. New name. She tapped the screen and stared. Kingsley Estate. Gate 3. Again. She blinked. Nope, she said out loud. This has to be a mistake. She checked the request. Same address. Same gate. Different code. Different barcode. Same name. Julian Kingsley. Her heart beat faster, but she didn't know why. Maybe it was anger. Maybe confusion. Maybe curiosity. She tossed the last bit of bread aside and started the engine. When she reached the gate, the same guard was there. But this time, something was different. He didn't scowl. He didn't smirk. He just opened the gate. Without a word. Raina slowly drove in, confused. She parked beside the long curved path. The mansion loomed ahead, beautiful and cold. The front door opened before she could knock. The housekeeper stood there with a soft nod. "Mr. Kingsley is waiting for you inside," she said. Raina frowned. "I'm just here to drop something off. I didn't even bring a box." "I know," the woman said. "He requested your visit." "For what?" The woman stepped aside. Raina hesitated, then walked in. Julian was in the sunroom this time. Warm light filled the space. Glass walls surrounded him. Plants hung in white pots above. He turned his chair toward her when she entered. "Raina," he said, almost like a greeting he'd been waiting to say all morning. "You called for me?" she asked, arms crossed. "I did." "Why?" "I forgot to thank you." Her eyebrows rose. "You had to call my company, lie about a package, and pull me off my route. To say thank you?" Julian looked slightly embarrassed. "Okay, that's not the only reason. I figured. I wanted to talk." Raina shook her head. "You have people to talk to. Drivers, assistants, housekeepers, doctors, therapists. But none of them stare me in the face like I'm just another man." Raina didn't respond. Julian's voice dropped lower. "And none of them are you." Silence. She took a step closer. "Julian, what do you want?" He looked at her slowly. "I want to understand you." "There's nothing to understand. I'm a delivery woman. I lift boxes. I sleep in a van. I keep to myself." "But why?" Raina stared at him. "That's personal. I can keep a secret." She hesitated. Julian added gently, "Do you always sleep in your van?" Raina's jaw tightened. "Where else should I sleep?" "I could." "No." She cut him off. "Don't offer anything. Don't throw money at me. Don't try to fix me. I wasn't trying to." "Yes, you were." Julian sighed. I see how hard you work. And I don't need saving." "I didn't say you did." "You think this is some story? Some rich guy finds a poor woman and gives her a new life? Is that what this is?" "No, because that's not real. That's a movie. Real life doesn't care if you're strong. It doesn't care if you're kind. It just beats you down until you don't stand up again." Julian was quiet. Then he whispered, "That's what I thought too." Raina blinked. "What?" "I thought life beat me. The day I woke up in a hospital bed and couldn't feel my legs. I thought it was over." She softened a little. "But you're still here." "Barely. I shut the world out. I pushed everyone away. I lived in silence. Until you carried a box through my gate like it was nothing. And you didn't flinch when I told you my legs don't work. You didn't look sad. You didn't look afraid. Because I've seen worse." "I know you have." Raina looked away. Julian rolled his chair forward slightly. "Just talk to me. Not as a billionaire. Not as a boss. Just a man. Talking to a woman who clearly carries more than anyone knows." She looked down at her hands. Rough, strong, but shaking just a little. "I used to have a gym," she said finally. "Tiny one. Nothing fancy. But it was mine. I trained women. Helped them get strong. Helped them feel safe." Julian listened closely. One night, a pipe burst. Flooded the place. Insurance didn't cover it. Couldn't pay rent. Lost the gym. Then the apartment. Then everything. She didn't blink. Her eyes were locked on a plant near the window. "I've been sleeping in that van for a year now. Nobody knows. I don't tell people. I just deliver and move on." Julian asked, "Why didn't you get help?" "I did. People smiled. Said nice things. Then closed their doors." He was quiet. Then softly said, "I'm sorry." Raina's voice cracked slightly. "Don't feel sorry for me. I don't. I feel respect." She looked at him. Really looked. And for once, he didn't look like a billionaire. He looked tired, human, and maybe even kind. They sat in silence for a while. No more sharp words. Just quiet. Julian broke it gently. "Do you want to see the stars tonight?" Raina gave him a sideways glance. "Stars." I finally opened the telescope. It works. She tilted her head. From this room, the roof opens. She raised a brow. Seriously? He smiled. I don't lie about stars. She chuckled under her breath. The sound surprised them both. I can't stay long, she said. I'm not asking you to. She sighed. I've got 5 more deliveries today. Julian nodded. Come back tonight then, after you're done. Raina frowned. That's not how this works. Maybe it's how this starts. She studied him. The calm in his voice. The hope in his eyes. It made her chest feel warm and strange. Finally, she said, I'll think about it. That's fair. Raina turned to leave. But before she reached the door, Julian called out, Raina! She stopped. What do you eat for dinner? She smiled for the first time. Whatever's cheap. He smiled back. I'll try to beat that. That night, Raina didn't go to her usual parking lot. She drove instead to a quiet corner under the hill near Silver Pine Street. She didn't know if she'd go up again. She didn't know what this was becoming. But for the first time in a year, she wasn't just surviving. She was curious. About the stars. About the man behind the glass. And maybe, just maybe, about herself again. The sky was dark and clear that night. For the first time in weeks, there was no rain. No clouds. Just stars, spread wide like tiny sparks across the deep black sky. The kind of sky that made people stop and look up, even if just for a moment. Raina sat in her van, parked quietly beneath the hill near Kingsley Estate. The engine was off. The lights were off. But her thoughts were loud. She had finished all her deliveries. Her back hurt. Her arms were sore. Her shirt had a stain from spilled sauce she couldn't afford to waste. She should have been sleeping. She should have been resting. But she wasn't. She kept glancing at her phone. There were no texts, no missed calls. No one ever called her anyway. But her mind kept whispering his name. Julian. The man in the chair. The glass mansion. The man who had asked her to come back tonight to see the stars. She had told herself she wouldn't go. She didn't belong in places like that. Not in homes with white floors and gold gates. Not with men who wore sweaters that probably cost more than everything she owned. But he didn't talk to her like a billionaire. And she didn't talk to him like a homeless woman. They had just talked. Like two people. It had been a long time since she'd felt that. She looked up at the hill again. The mansion lights were still on. And before she could stop herself, she opened the door. The guard was gone tonight. The gate was open. Raina walked in slowly, her hands in the pockets of her jacket. Her steps were heavy but quiet. The air smelled like flowers and cold stone. As she reached the front door, it opened before she could knock. Julian was waiting. He sat in his chair, dressed in a plain navy shirt and dark pants. No guards. No assistants. Just him. A small smile pulled at the corner of his mouth. I thought you changed your mind, he said. I almost did, she replied. What changed? She shrugged. I looked up. He smiled and turned his chair. Come. The roof's already open. The sunroom had transformed. The ceiling had pulled back, revealing the sky. The stars were everywhere above them, like they had been waiting all day for this moment. In the center of the room stood the telescope. Raina walked in slowly, glancing around. The plants above moved slightly with the breeze. The marble under her boots felt cold, but her chest was warm. Julian rolled to the side and nodded at the telescope. Have you ever looked through one? Once. A long time ago. At a museum, she said. I barely remember. He pointed. Try it. She stepped forward, leaned in, and peered through. She let out a small breath. Wow! Julian watched her face. The way her eyes lit up. The way her lips parted slightly. What do you see? He asked. A bunch of stars. Anything else? She focused. Cluster? They look like diamonds. They're called the Pleiades. Sounds fancy. He chuckled. Some call them the Seven Sisters. They're about 400 light years away. She blinked and looked up. So the light we're seeing now left that spot a long time ago? Exactly. That's crazy. It is. She stepped back and crossed her arms. You stare at stars often? Julian nodded. It helps me remember how small I am, and how big the world still is, even if I'm stuck in one room. She looked at him. You're not stuck. He raised a brow. No. She shook her head. You just stopped moving. That hit him harder than he expected. He didn't say anything, so she sat down on the edge of the couch nearby. The silence was comfortable now. Not sharp, not strange, just quiet. Then she asked, why did you stop talking to people? He leaned back slowly. Because they stopped seeing me. She frowned. After the accident, he continued, people didn't know how to act around me. Some were overly nice. Some avoided me. Some just treated me like I was glass. Fragile. Breakable. You don't seem breakable to me. I'm not. But I let them think I was. She tilted her head. Why? Julian stared up at the stars. Because it was easier. Easier to hide. To stay in this house. To stop feeling anything. She nodded. I get that. Do you? She leaned forward, resting her elbows on her knees. Every night when I park my van, I tell myself I'll try again tomorrow. But I'm not sure what I'm even trying for anymore. I just keep going. Julian turned to face her. Isn't that strength? No. It's survival. Still counts. She looked at him. You ever wish you could just disappear? He answered without thinking. Every day. She nodded slowly. Me too. They both fell silent again. But this time it wasn't lonely. It was shared. Julian broke the quiet. What was it like? Running your gym? Raina's eyes lit up for a second. It was the best thing I ever did. Not because it made me money. It barely did. But because it gave women a place to feel strong. Safe. You miss it. Every single day. Do you think you'll open it again someday? She paused. Then looked at him. I don't plan that far anymore. Julian leaned forward. Maybe you should. She scoffed. With what? Hope. With belief. In what? In yourself. She looked away. Don't start sounding like a quote from a greeting card. He smiled. Sorry. She smiled back. It's okay. I've just heard a lot of pretty words from people who walk away the moment things get hard. I'm not going anywhere. She studied his face. You don't even know me. I know enough. Do you? You deliver more than packages. You carry pain, but you still show up. That tells me a lot. She looked down, her voice low. You're not scared of me? Should I be? Most people are. They see my arms, my shoulders. They think I'm a man, or a threat, or something broken. I see strength. I see someone I want to talk to. Raina's eyes softened. No one had said that to her before. Not like that. Not without asking for something in return. They talked for hours. About small things. About big things. About music. Raina liked loud drums. Julian preferred jazz. About food. Raina hated sweet breakfasts. Julian thought pancakes were perfect. About books. Raina never had time to read. Julian offered to lend her one. They laughed at parts. Fell quiet at others. But they never looked at their phones. They didn't need to. Something was happening. Something neither of them could explain, but both of them felt. It was past midnight when Raina stood up. I should go, she said. Julian nodded, but didn't hide his disappointment. Will you come back? He asked. She shrugged. I don't know. Do you want to? She looked down, then met his eyes. Yes. He smiled. Then I'll wait. Raina took a deep breath. Don't wait too long. I won't. As she turned to walk away, Julian called out again. Raina! She stopped. He reached into the side table and held up a book. Take this. She hesitated, then walked back and took it. She didn't even look at the title. Good night, Julian. Good night, Raina. She stepped outside. The stars were still there, but something inside her had changed. For the first time in a long time, she felt seen. Not judged, not measured, just seen. And as she walked back to her van, clutching the book in one hand, she whispered to herself, don't mess this up. But deep down, she wasn't scared. Not anymore. The next morning came with golden light breaking through the early fog. Julian Kingsley was already awake. He had barely slept. His mind had replayed every second of last night. Raina's voice, her laugh, the way her eyes softened when she talked about her gym. Her quiet strength echoed in his heart long after she'd gone. He sat by the window, dressed in a clean white shirt and soft black pants. The housekeeper brought his tea, but he didn't drink it. His eyes were fixed on the long driveway, even though it was empty. She didn't promise she'd come back, he whispered to himself. But she did say yes. He smiled. Then he frowned. Something was missing. Her ID. He leaned over the side table, where she had placed the book before slipping it into her pocket. But just under where it had been, tucked inside the couch cushion, was a small, worn-out plastic card. He pulled it out and read it. It was Raina's work ID. Cracked edges. Faded print. Her picture was blurry, but her name was clear. Raina M. Ramos. Delivery agent, Route D9. He stared at it for a moment. Then he did something he never did. He left the house. Benedict, his assistant, blinked in shock when Julian rolled into the front courtyard. "Sir, the car is not prepared. I'm not going far." "But," I said, "I'm going." Benedict watched him move toward the garage lift. "Do you need a driver?" "No." Julian pressed the button to lower the custom-built platform that carried his wheelchair into the private vehicle. It had been months since he used it. His hands were steady, his voice calm, but inside he was nervous. He didn't know why he had to see her van. He just knew he needed to. Raina was parked behind an old warehouse at the edge of the city. It was her usual daytime spot on weekends. Quiet, out of sight. No one bothered her there. She sat inside her van, stretching her legs across the back seat, sipping from a plastic water bottle, her hair tied up in a messy bun. The van was old. The paint had peeled in places. The windows were covered with dark cloth from the inside. It was both her home and her hiding place. On the front seat was the book Julian had given her. She hadn't opened it yet. She wasn't ready. A part of her still didn't believe what was happening. That someone like him, someone with a mansion, a name, a whole world of wealth, would talk to someone like her, without shame, without pity. She held the book for a moment, thumb brushing the edges, then set it down again. She needed to sleep, but just as she closed her eyes, she heard it. A car. Slow. Pulling up beside her van. She sat up fast, heart racing. She peeked out through a small gap in the curtain. A black car. Shiny. Clean. Then she saw the back door open, and her heart dropped. Julian. He wheeled himself out of the car gently, adjusting the brakes on his chair. His eyes scanned the area, searching for her van. It didn't take long. There it was. The same one he'd seen her drive away in. Parked beside a dumpster, blending into the background. He stared at it. So this was her home. This was where she slept. Not in a room. Not in a bed. But here. In a space barely longer than a hallway. He didn't knock. He just waited. Inside, Raina's chest was tight. She didn't know what to do. Should she hide? Should she open the door? Should she run? But it was too late. He already knew. And he was still there. Still waiting. Slowly, she unlocked the side door and slid it open. Their eyes met. Julian didn't look shocked. He didn't look sad. He just looked at her. Calm. Like he'd known. "Hey!" he said softly. Raina stepped out, pulling her jacket around her body. "What are you doing here?" He held up the card. "You left this." She looked down at the ID in his hand. "Oh," she muttered. "Thanks." Silence stretched between them. Then she asked, "Did you follow me?" "No." "Then how?" "I asked around. A delivery driver near the Kingsley district gave me a hint." Raina didn't respond. Julian looked at the van again. "You live here?" She crossed her arms. "Yeah." "For how long?" "Over a year." He nodded slowly. "You shouldn't have to." "But I do." He met her eyes. "Let me help." "No." "Raina." I said no. He looked confused. "Why not?" "Because help always comes with a price." "Not from me." "You say that now." I mean it. She stepped back, eyes sharp. Don't you dare try to save me like I'm some broken girl. I'm not your charity case. Julian's voice dropped. You think that's what this is? I don't know what this is. He paused. It's not pity. It's not rescue. It's respect. It's care. She stared at him. Why? Because you remind me of myself. She raised an eyebrow. You? Sitting in your mansion with your chef and driver. I was trapped too. Not in a van, but in pain, in silence, in fear. The world kept moving, and I stopped. Raina's eyes softened just a little. I saw you carrying something heavier than any box, he said quietly, and I couldn't ignore it. She looked down. You can't fix me. I don't want to fix you. I just want to walk beside you. Or roll beside you, he added with a small smile. Raina laughed softly. The sound broke the tension. She sat on the edge of the van, elbows on her knees. Julian wheeled closer. I don't know how to let people in, she said. I don't either, he replied. They sat like that for a while. No pressure, no judgment, just presence. Julian looked inside the van. It was clean, organized, but small. A thin blanket, a box of canned food, a pile of folded uniforms. A pair of old gym shoes neatly placed by the back corner. Do you eat enough? He asked. Sometimes. Where do you shower? Gas stations. Gyms. Sometimes nowhere. Where do you park at night? Depends on who's chasing me off. Julian's hands gripped the arms of his chair tightly. She noticed. You can't carry this, Julian, she said. I'm not trying to. I had no idea. That's the point, she said. No one ever does. He was quiet for a moment. Then he asked, would you come back tonight? To the mansion? Yes. Why? I want to show you something. She narrowed her eyes. What? A room. She looked away. I'm not ready for that. It's just a room. With a roof. A hot shower. Clean sheets. I'm still not ready. I'll leave the door unlocked anyway. She looked at him. He smiled again. This time she didn't look away. That night, Raina didn't go back to the gas station. She didn't go to the alley behind the store. She didn't even sleep. She sat in her van parked outside the Kingsley estate, watching the light in the guest house. Waiting. But she didn't go in. Not yet. Julian sat at the window again. He saw the van. He didn't say anything. He just turned off the lamp beside him and whispered into the dark. She's still here. The wind came first. It was soft at the start, just enough to make the trees around the Kingsley estate sway like they were whispering to one another. Raina sat in her van with her hands on the steering wheel, watching the guest house light flicker through the leaves. She hadn't moved all night. Sleep never came. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Julian's face when he looked inside her van. Not pity, not shock, just quiet understanding. That scared her more than anything. Then the rain started. One drop, then another, then many. Soon, it was pouring so hard the sound on the van roof drowned out every thought in her head. Water slid down the windshield in thick sheets. The wind shook the van from side to side. Raina sat up straight. This is bad, she muttered. She stepped out quickly, pulling her jacket tighter. Water soaked her hair within seconds. She ran to the back of the van to check the old seal she had patched weeks ago. Her heart sank. Water was leaking in, dripping straight onto her folded clothes. No, 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 she whispered, pressing her palm against the wet fabric. The storm grew louder, stronger, like it was angry. Thunder cracked across the sky. Raina slammed the van door shut and leaned against it, breathing hard. Rain soaked her jacket, her boots filled with water. She looked up at the hill, at the mansion, at the guest house light, still on, waiting. Her chest felt tight. She remembered Julian's voice, calm, steady. I'll leave the door unlocked anyway. Raina clenched her fists. I can't, she said to herself. I can't walk in there like this. Another thunderclap shook the ground. The van rocked again. Water spilled across the floor near her feet. She stood still for one more second. Then she made a choice. Julian was already awake. He had woken at the first sound of thunder. The storm triggered something in him. The memory of metal twisting, glass breaking, pain rushing in. He rolled closer to the window and looked toward the driveway. His heart dropped. The van lights were on. The rain was pouring harder now, slamming against the ground like it wanted to tear it apart. He picked up his phone and called Benedict. "Bring the car," Julian said. "Now." "What's wrong, sir?" "It's the storm. She's still out there." "I'll alert security." "No. Bring the car." Julian grabbed his jacket and wheeled toward the door. Raina reached the guest house door just as lightning flashed across the sky. She hesitated. Water ran down her face like tears. She lifted her hand and knocked. Once, then twice. The door opened immediately. Julian sat inside, his jacket already on, his eyes wide. "Come in," he said urgently. "Please." She stepped inside, dripping water onto the floor. "I'm sorry," she said. "I didn't want to. But my van." "It's okay," he said, not waiting for her to finish. "You're here now." He wheeled back as she closed the door behind her. The warmth inside hit her all at once. Heat, light, safety. She stood there, frozen. "I don't want to cause trouble," she said. Julian shook his head. "You didn't." Thunder boomed outside. She flinched. Julian noticed. "You're shaking," he said. "I'm fine." "You're not." She looked at him, soaked, tired, broken in ways she hadn't allowed herself to notice. "My things are getting wet," she said quietly. Julian pressed a button on the wall. Moments later, Benedict rushed in. "Sir, get some towels, extra blankets, and send someone to check the van." Benedict looked confused but nodded and hurried away. Raina frowned. "You don't have to do all this." Julian met her eyes. "I do." The storm raged outside. Wind howled like something alive. Inside the guest house, Raina sat on the edge of the couch, wrapped in a thick towel. Her clothes had been replaced with a loose gray sweater and soft pants that didn't cling to her skin. She kept her boots by the door, just in case. Julian sat across from her, a cup of warm tea in his hands. "Drink," he said softly. She hesitated, then took a sip. It burned her tongue, but she welcomed the heat. They listened to the rain pound the roof. Raina broke the silence. "I hate storms." Julian nodded. "Me too." "You?" "Yes." She raised a brow. "You're safe in a mansion." He looked down. "I wasn't always." She leaned back slightly. "Right? The accident." He closed his eyes briefly. "Rain sounds like metal tearing now. I know it's silly." "It's not," she said. He opened his eyes. "You're not laughing." "Why would I?" They sat quietly again. Then Raina whispered, "They chased me off last week." "Who?" "Security guards. Different area. Said I looked suspicious. Said I was ruining the view." Julian's jaw tightened. "I'm sorry. It happens. Not here." She looked at him. "What do you mean?" "As long as you're here, no one will chase you." She shook her head. "Don't promise things you can't control." "I can control this." Outside, thunder cracked again. Raina hugged the towel tighter around her shoulders. Julian noticed every movement. "How long has it been since you slept in a bed?" he asked. She thought for a moment. "I don't remember." "Tonight," he said, calm but firm. "You sleep here." She stiffened. "I didn't agree to that." "I know. But the storm isn't stopping." As if to prove his point, the lights flickered. Rain hammered the windows. Raina swallowed hard. "Just for the night," she said at last. Julian nodded. "Just the night." Later, Benedict returned with news. "The van won't start, sir. Water got into the engine." Raina's heart dropped. "No," she said, standing up. "No, no, no." Julian wheeled closer. "It can be fixed. That van is my life." "I know. If it's gone." "It's not gone," Julian said firmly. "We'll have it repaired. I promise." She shook her head. "I don't take handouts." "This isn't a handout." This is help. The same way you carried desks for people who needed them. Tears burned her eyes. She turned away quickly. Julian's voice softened. You're not alone tonight. She whispered back, I don't know how to be anything else. He didn't push. He just stayed. The storm lasted until morning. When dawn came, the sky was clear again. Fresh, clean. Raina woke in the guest bed, wrapped in thick white sheets. For a split second, she panicked, thinking she had missed work, thinking she had lost everything. Then she heard it. Birds. Soft. Close. She sat up slowly. Sunlight poured through the window. A hot shower waited in the bathroom. Clean towels folded neatly on the chair. Her clothes were drying nearby. She pressed her feet into the soft carpet. Felt wrong. And perfect. At the same time, a knock came at the door. She froze. Then Julian's voice followed. Good morning. She opened the door slowly. He smiled. You slept, he said. Barely. But you rested. She nodded. There's breakfast, he added. Nothing fancy. She hesitated, then stepped aside so he could see her. Thank you, she said quietly. For everything. Julian met her eyes. You don't owe me. I know, she replied. That's why this scares me. He smiled gently. It scares me too. They stood there in the morning light, neither of them wanting to move. Not yet. The sun had risen high over the Kingsley estate. But inside the guest house, everything felt quiet, like the world was holding its breath. Raina stood in front of the bathroom mirror, dressed in the soft clothes Julian had given her. Her own uniform was still drying on the chair. She stared at her reflection, unsure of who she saw. The lines on her face, the dark circles under her eyes, the small scar on her chin. Those were all hers. But the room behind her didn't belong. The warmth, the softness, the silence scared her. It felt like she was inside a life that didn't belong to her. A knock came at the door. Raina. Julian's voice was soft. She opened the door halfway. He was waiting with 2 mugs of hot tea. You hungry? He asked. She nodded, taking 1 mug. They sat outside on the patio side by side. Birds hopped near the edge of the table. The grass was still wet from the storm. The sky was wide and clear. I checked on the van, Julian said, sipping from his mug. Mechanic says it'll take a few days. They're replacing the starter. Raina frowned. How much? Don't worry about it. She set her mug down. Julian, I'm not buying your silence, Raina. She looked at him. Then what are you doing? I'm doing what I would have wanted someone to do for me. She leaned back in the chair, silent for a while. Then she said quietly, You can't keep helping me. It's going to mess everything up. He looked confused. Mess up what? This? She said, waving her hand. Whatever this is. Julian's voice stayed calm. It's not charity. It feels like it. It's not. It's me showing up. For what? For you. Raina stood up suddenly. Her voice got sharper. You don't even know me. He nodded. Then tell me. She stared at him, heart racing. I'm not rich. I'm not clean. I've slept on floors. I've eaten spoiled food. I've fought men twice my size for gas money. I don't have a degree. I don't even have a working phone most days. My hands are rough. My back aches every night. I sweat through my shirts. I smell like cheap soap. She stepped closer. This life, your world, has soft carpets and clean glass and people who open gates for you. My world has locks on bathrooms and no one who remembers your name. Julian didn't flinch. He waited, then said gently, I still want to know you. Why? Because you're real. Raina turned away. You say that now. I'll say it again tomorrow. You're just feeling sorry for me. No, he said. I'm feeling something else. She froze. He stood from his wheelchair slowly, using his armrests. He wobbled but stood. She turned in shock. You're standing. He nodded. For the first time in a while. Why now? Because you're worth the effort. Raina's face twisted, and her voice cracked. Stop saying things like that. Why? Because it hurts. Julian stepped closer, still shaky on his feet. What hurts? She looked at him, eyes full of pain. I didn't think anyone would ever say that to me again. He whispered, You deserve to hear it. She covered her mouth with one hand. And for the first time in years, she cried. Julian sat beside her, slowly lowering himself onto the bench. Reina's shoulders shook. She tried to stop, but the tears kept falling. He didn't touch her. He didn't speak. He just sat with her. When she finally found her voice, it came out broken. I used to dream big, you know? I thought I'd open 3 gyms, then 5, then start one for kids. I even had a name picked out, Queen's House. But now, Julian looked at her. But now what? She wiped her face. Now I'm just surviving, day by day, trying not to fall apart. You haven't fallen. I've been close. Julian nodded. Me too. She looked at him. What did you lose in the accident? He didn't blink. My legs, my peace, my confidence, my friends. She whispered. All of them. He nodded. People stop calling when they don't know what to say. That's true. I stopped answering when I didn't know who I was anymore. She asked quietly, And now? I'm trying to remember. She gave a weak smile. Me too. The wind blew gently across the patio. Julian leaned back. Do you want to know the truth? Reina looked at him. He said, I haven't let anyone in this house since the accident. Not like this. Not for long. Why not? Because I was afraid. Of what? Of being seen. She blinked. But everyone sees you. No, he said. They see the billionaire. The broken man in the wheelchair. The name. The money. Not me. She nodded slowly. And me? What do I see? You see someone who still matters. Reina was quiet for a long time. Then she said, You know, I think you're the first person who hasn't looked at me like I'm strange. You're not strange. I'm strong. But that scares people. Not me. I'm loud sometimes. I can be quiet enough for both of us. She chuckled through her tears. I'm messy. I'm broken. They both laughed, then fell into silence again. But this time it was full of peace. That evening, as the sun began to set, Reina helped the housekeeper prepare dinner. She wore a clean apron, her hair tied up neatly. She sliced vegetables while the woman stirred a large pot. Julian watched from the doorway, smiling. He had never seen his kitchen come alive like this. Later, they all ate together, Julian, Reina, Benedict, and the housekeeper, whose name was Maria. They laughed. They talked. They ate slowly, like they didn't want the night to end. After dinner, Julian and Reina walked, or rather rolled and walked, through the garden path behind the mansion. The sky above was clear again. Reina stopped near the small pond and sat on a bench. Julian rolled beside her. She said, I don't know what this is. Me neither. But I don't want to lose it. Then let's not. I don't trust easily. I'm not asking for your trust in one day. She looked at him. So what are you asking for? A chance. She nodded. Then whispered, Okay. But nothing good stays quiet for long. 2 days later, Reina stepped outside the guest house to find a black car parked at the gate. A woman stood there, dressed in a sharp blue suit, holding a tablet. She looked up at Reina. You're Reina Ramos? Yes, Reina said carefully. I'm from the Post. I'm here for a quote. A what? A quote on your relationship with Julian Kingsley. Reina froze. Who told you I was here? The woman tapped her tablet. We have sources. It's a hot story. I'm not part of a story. You are now. She turned to leave, but more voices came from behind the gate. Cameras, people, flashes. Julian came down the path quickly in his chair. He looked furious. Who let them in? He snapped. Benedict ran after him. I'm handling it, sir. Julian reached Reina. I'm so sorry. I don't know how they found out. Reina's face was pale. This is why I didn't want this, she whispered. I'll make it stop. You can't. He reached for her hand. She stepped back. Reina, I need to breathe, she said, and she walked back inside. Alone. That night, Julian sat at the telescope, staring at the sky. But it felt empty. The stars didn't shine the same. Raina stayed in the guest house for 3 more days. She barely left the room. She didn't talk much. She didn't eat much either. She sat by the window and watched the garden like it was her only way out. The moment those reporters had shown up, it felt like everything she feared came true. People knew. The whispers had begun. And Julian was still kind, still gentle, still waiting. But it was too much. She wasn't built for spotlights. She was built for lifting boxes, fighting for tips, and sleeping with her boots on. Now the world was watching. Julian sat across the garden in the main house, reading headlines on his tablet. Mystery woman in billionaire's life? Who is the muscular maid seen with Julian Kingsley? From street to suite. Romance or rescue? He closed the tablet. His jaw clenched. Raina, he whispered. They're twisting it already. He rolled into his office and called Benedict. Get the board on a call, he said. Benedict paused. Sir. Today. All of them. Understood. Julian stared out the window. He had let people control his life once. Not again. That evening, Raina walked slowly down the hall. She found Julian at the piano again, tapping quiet keys but not playing a song. He looked up. Their eyes met. She took a deep breath. I want to go. He nodded slowly. I figured. I need to disappear for a while. He said nothing. She added, It's not you. It's me in the middle of something too big. I know. I can't be a headline. I didn't ask you to be. I don't want to be your story. You're not, he said. You're my beginning. Her eyes filled with tears. That's exactly why I have to go. Julian reached into his jacket and pulled out an envelope. He handed it to her. She opened it slowly. Inside was a note written in his own handwriting. You saved me, even when you didn't know you did. I will wait, no matter how long. Raina read it twice. Her voice cracked. Why do you care this much? He smiled. Because you never asked me to. The next morning, Raina left before sunrise. No goodbye. No drama. She left the envelope behind, pressed gently against a fresh towel on the bed. Underneath it, a single line. I will come back, but not until I can stand beside you without fear. Julian read it after she was gone. He sat alone for hours. Not broken, just waiting. Weeks passed. The story died down. The cameras left. The gossip moved on. Julian kept going. He stood more. He walked slowly with support. He played music again. And he never stopped leaving the guest house light on. Every single night. Then one morning, Benedict entered Julian's office with wide eyes. Sir, he said, there's something you need to see. Julian looked up. What is it? Benedict smiled. She's back. The jet landed quietly on the private strip in Abuja. The door opened. Out stepped Raina. Clean uniform. Back straighter. Eyes steady. Beside her, 3 young women in workout gear. Muscular. Confident. Smiling. Julian walked toward them. No wheelchair. No cane. Just him. He froze halfway. She smiled. You didn't think I'd come back small, did you? He stared at the girls beside her. They're the first students, she said. I opened the gym last week. Queen's house. He blinked. How? Someone left a ridiculous amount of money in a donation envelope with no name on it, she said. He chuckled. Sounds sneaky. I used every cent. She stepped closer. The students walked ahead, laughing toward the terminal. Now it was just Raina and Julian, face to face. You changed, he said. She nodded. So did you. He smiled. You walked here. She nodded. And you stood waiting. He whispered. Are you still scared? She said. Yes. But you came. Yes. Why? She stepped close enough to touch his chest. Because some things are worth fighting for. He blinked. And you? She asked. Are you still scared? He shook his head. Not anymore. Good. Then she whispered. So, where's that telescope? He laughed. She reached for his hand. He took it. Firm, warm, real. 2 weeks later, in a private garden full of white roses and soft music, Julian stood in front of friends, family, and a few of Raina's students. There was no press, no cameras, just vows. Raina wore a simple white dress that didn't hide her muscles. She held his hand like it was made for hers. He wore a navy suit and smiled like the sun had come home. Julian said, "The first time I saw her, I saw strength." Raina said, "The first time I saw him, I saw a man who wanted to be real." They kissed. Everyone clapped. Someone cried. Later that night, they sat under the stars on the roof of the guest house. The telescope pointed at the sky. Raina leaned against his shoulder. Julian looked up. "Still remember the 7 sisters?" he asked. She smiled. "They're still shining," she said. He turned to her. "So are you." She turned back. "So are we."